All right, and we're back. This is Wired Up, broadcasting live from the former industrial nexus from the great Midwest, United States of America, Flint, Michigan. This is Wired Up, of course. We're tired, we're wired, and we need to be inspired. Today we're going to talk about the political spectrum, because apparently this is a thing that the right wing doesn't quite understand. Like, at all. They have no idea. Because they say really dumb things and have this perspective that pretty much anyone that they don't like, or conveniently choose to stop liking, is left-wing. And that's the reason. Because everything that's bad is left-wing, right? All of them. The Nazis, the KKK, all of them are right-wing. Or all of them are left-wing, right? Only good things happen on the right wing. Very convenient cover, isn't it? So, let's talk about the spectrum first. Go over the basic idea of what the spectrum is. I just got to pull up my links real quick. So, we're just going to do a Wikipedia article, not for any other reason, but because it's simple. Your basic political spectrum will look a little something like this. It will have 4 quadrants to it. People think that in everything in politics is left and right. No, they go up and down between authoritarian and libertarian too. Furry avatars on the left, enemy avatars are fasci. Yes. So, why does this matter? What is the political spectrum? It is a very base understanding and a very base example of where people sit. Your ideas as a whole, where it points you to. And I mean, it is flawed. It is, of course, flawed. Because putting you down as one point on a map, on a graph, a human being whose opinions can constantly shift. And it can be different collections of different opinions that put you in the same spot. Yeah, exactly. It's a meme format in a lot of ways, but it's a good identifier for just general idea of where someone sits, where someone believes. The consistent opinions will move you either way. But like I said, you can have a number of opinions and match the same spot as someone else who has differing opinions than you. It is very flawed. But it still generally can work for a normal person to understand where they sit and what they believe. So that's a good start to it. So, let's just say you are a pro-business Republican who empowers corporations, gives them obscene amounts of tax cuts, and is very much about being an authoritarian state. Well, you are economically right and authoritarian. Because let's think about that. Empowering corporations is the right wing. Giving them tax cuts is right wing. Cutting regulation, right wing. Look, anybody disagreeing with this so far? Because that's all the things that right-wingers like. Because that's all the things that they think is good. And what they don't like is the fact that, well, the war. And war, they have to make up in their head, is left-wing somehow. Why do they do that? Very simply, because they think politics as a whole only work along this one axis. They're very simplistic in their thoughts that way. But in actuality, it moves up and down. You can be a left-wing libertarian, a left-wing anarchist. I know, it's fucking crazy. What? That's nuts. I've never heard these terms before. Of course you haven't. There's a reason for that. It's because you're uneducated on the subject and you chose to ignore everything that was inconvenient to your opinions. You can't do that. And this isn't me being closed-minded about your perspective. Your perspective is based on something that actually exists, that actually can be measured. As flawed as it is a measurement of where you stand. A generalized position. But it still matters. It's helpful. In a very broad way. But still helpful. So let's say you're another president. You're slightly less pro-business, but you pass a lot of tax cuts. You pass some new regulations, but they largely don't have very much teeth to them, and you're very pro-market. So you're neoliberal, basically. And also, you're kind of okay with drone warfare and increasing the national defense budget. Where would you sit? Well, that's still economically right, isn't it? And it's a little more authoritarian. Not as bad as the previous. You probably don't sit further over here. You probably sit around here on the spectrum for your economics. Closer to the center. But just as authoritarian. So you probably sit about there. Because you're not full authoritarian. We're not talking about a full dictator state. We're just talking about taking control away from general citizenry. Sorry about that. So, who are the two examples that I just used? The first one was George W. Bush, and the second one was Barack Obama. Now let's say you're a presidential candidate. You believe in increasing the social state, socializing healthcare, which is something that the center-left in most countries have done already and have been proven to be detrimental to their survival as a country for their citizenry. Let's say you believe that you need to break up some banks, some businesses, impose some new regulations on them. Let's say you're also anti-war. You're pro-choice. You don't give a fuck what people do with their bodies. You have no care at all. Say it's your body, it's your choice. If you want to be trans, you can be trans. If you want to be gay, you can be gay. Of course, you're born that way. But you choose to pursue that, of course, to be who you are. You will have my support because it's not any of my goddamn business who you are. Well, that kind of leads you a little bit down here, doesn't it? Because you're towards libertarian, because you believe in their freedom to express themselves how they are. And in their bodily autonomy. Their personal bodily autonomy. Not making decisions for anyone else. Not infringing on anyone else's personal space or rights. Their own. That's libertarian, right? But that social state thing, that puts you on the left. But you're not talking about decommodifying everything and making a complete and utter state takeover of all private industries where the means of production is owned by the workers. No, that's over here. You're talking about something a little bit less. So you're probably right here on the left, and you're down here. Even with those regulations. Because you got to remember, regulations are economic policy. So that goes into your measurement over here, not down here. Are we following along? So that's the basics of it. How useful is it? I keep saying it's flawed. It is generally flawed. It's a very generalized thing. It's literally trying to take a human being whose opinions can change on a whim and trying to pigeonhole them. So there's going to be areas where it doesn't quite fit everything. Now, I've talked a lot about my political beliefs. Obviously, I always admit that a lot of them are very aspirational. I understand that. I will take what I can get. I'm not overall an accelerationist, but I do believe in making the best step forward and the most cohesive one. Let's see where I stand on this political spectrum according to the political compass. I figured that'd be a little bit of a fun thing, and especially to go into the questions that they ask. Actually, before that, I do want to get into another thing. The Overton window. We'll give the technical description. The Overton window is the range of ideas tolerated in public discourse, also known as the window of discourse. Basically meaning, if there's a plurality of you that believe a certain thing, you are in this narrow space on that spectrum. Now, for example, if you are far on the right and you believe everything over here is far left, but on the political spectrum, it's still right wing across the board. Guess what? That still doesn't make it left wing. That is a fact, not an opinion. This isn't something we can agree to disagree on. This is something that is there, measurable. For example, this has been something that's been happening to our country for a long, long time. The shift of our Overton window further and further to the right, to where the rest of the world, which is shifted slightly more to the left than us, to where their center left is not their extreme left wing like it is here. They're just your normal everyday liberals. Their extreme left is actual full-on socialists. And they have positions in government. Holy fucking shit, that sounds insane in America, doesn't it? It's nuts. And we're just going to go ahead and ignore the fact that a lot of the things that they enact in their country works out a lot better for them, and they have a better, quality of life. But that's neither here nor there, right? So when you talk about how someone like, you consider someone like George W. Bush, left wing, Barack Obama, left wing, Anna Navarro, left wing, all these people that just so happen to not like Trump, who is on the far right wing, edging towards fascism, and that authoritarianism, that's not a problem with the spectrum. That's a problem with the window. And the window is specified by the discourse, the range of discourse. So, hands down, Barack Obama is not a left-winger. He's pretty close to the center, but he's still right-wing. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Neoliberalism is a right-wing philosophy. Hell, regular liberalism is right-wing. Oh my God, he said the bad words. What are we going to do? He said the thing I don't like and can back it up with knowledge. Fucking get him, right? So let's get into this further, because this is the most important part. Because the Overton window is something that is a lot easier to define and a lot more useful. The spectrum itself on its own, pigeonholing single peoples, that's where it gets wishy-washy. But the window is a measure of the total discourse, the popular discourse, and the unpopular, which sweeps it to other sides. What is your range? What are your extremes? In this country, it's extreme to call yourself a socialist. Weird enough, it's not extreme to call yourself a nationalist, but, well, we'll get there, right? Overton described a spectrum from more free to less free with regard to government intervention, oriented vertically on an axis to avoid comparison with the left-right political spectrum. As the spectrum moves or expands, an idea at a given location may become more or less politically acceptable. See what we're trying to do with the right-wing Democratic Party right now is pulling back to the left, because they've been kowtowing to the right for a long time, to where they are now a right-wing party. I keep using the example of the ACA. Like, that's a very left-wing bill. It wasn't in 1994, was it? It was the right-wing counter to Hillary Clinton saying socialized health care. Both of those things failed. Oh, yeah, and it just so happened to be the solution for Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. It's literally the same thing in almost every single way, just on a national, federal stage. So why is it considered left-wing now? Because your window has shifted to the right. And that's not a good thing. I know you right-wingers, you hate extremes. Well, guess what? You are the extreme. You are the extreme right now. You guys are so far to the right that you're about to fall into full-on fascism. Oh, no, he doesn't know what fascism is. You know, he's going to start talking about Antifa and blah, blah, blah. Sure. You may not feel like it because you're getting all the things you want. But why does it sound so appealing to you when some of your friends start talking about a ethno-state? It's like, well, you know, I'm not for starting a war to have an ethno-state. But if it were to happen, there are several countries around the world who are ethno-states and they do perfectly well. Right? Why is that something that you're entertaining all of a sudden? Because those are pretty extreme ideas. But those seem kind of good to you, don't they? They seem less extreme now. Ever since Bush was in office, those ideas don't seem so extreme because we kind of went further than we were supposed to before. That authoritarianism is okay with you because you moved more towards it. For example, the Patriot Act, the spying, warrantless wiretapping, and that set up Obama doing the NSA spying. The expansion of the president to just have warfare that isn't war, like bombings. Started under the Bush administration, pulled us further to the right and up towards authoritarianism. Made that window look like that on the right. And Obama didn't do anything to correct to the left. No matter how much you want to believe that's true, he didn't. You want to know who was really pissed off at Obama a lot more than you guys? Us. There's a reason. It's because he's not a crazy left-wing socialist like you thought. He was just your typical neoliberal shill that was okay with enhancing the military-industrial complex. And he did that and gave him tons of tax cuts. You forget the Bush tax cuts became permanent under the Obama administration. Thank you, Joe Biden. Thanks for that. All you had to do was do nothing and they would have ended. But wait a minute, you guys like that. That's a right-wing policy. Holy shit, it's almost like, again, the things he did was right-wing. And these are not just the things he did to appease to Republicans, which, yes, that was true. It's also things that they have proposed and believed. The Obama administration was talking about doing what was called the grand bargain, which was a cut to Social Security and Medicare and raising the age of eligibility. That's a right-wing thing too. Holy shit. When they talk about cutting entitlements, yeah, they always talk about cutting entitlements, right? On the right. Well, Obama wanted to do that. But we stopped him. Those are very few wins on the left. Because it's really difficult to do those things. Because it's insanely unpopular. Because we all get it. We can have a discussion about universalism another time. So, we spelled that out. Where Obama sits on the left in your Overton window, he was actually right-wing on an overall political spectrum. His policies that he enacted, and everything down to the things he proposed and said he believed in the background, all fit that example. Just clear some stuff out here real quick. Okay. So, let's have some fun. I am going to take the political compass test. It is a very flawed test. I will go ahead and admit that. Actually, you know what? First, I'm sorry I keep putting it off, but this is a quick video, and I was told that this is very good, so let's watch this really quick. It'll help make things a little bit easier for you.
Hi, I'm Totalitarian Right. I'm the voice of the people. If the people are white, don't mean to get up in your face, but we're getting replaced. Culture war now, let's win this race. Okay, $15, right? That's $1 for every year that she's been alive. Well, I keep telling you, it's not pedophilia, it's a febophilia. Oh, she's only 14? Guess it is pedophilia. Still, it's $1 off, right? Oh, hi, I'm anarchist, right? I don't believe in a state. None of this might makes right. I think market forces should guide the world, and if there's a market for it, I should be able to buy this girl. $13.50 funnel offer. Make me sick. I am the proletariat. You two capitalist pigs will get round up and shot, and I will speak for the weak whether they want me to or not. I am totalitarian left. My side is the best. I realize the last 5 times we tried this we all starved to death, but I have a really good feeling about the next. I'm anarchist left and oh fuck, this is not the place for me. How do all these ideologies suck so much? Anyone want some DMT? I'll have some. Here. You, not for free. How do you expect to stimulate the economy? Okay, first things first. Fuck you. What did I do? Second, you want to crush people through the state. I mean, Yeah, sure, the state is great. You claim to want equality, but how can that be when the state is controlling how equal you can be? And third, fuck you! And fourth, you're not even an anarchist, dude. You expect to keep the people in line without a state? Please. At least the three of us aren't contradictory. What? This guy claims to be an anarchist, but fetishizes cops. Hey, if cops can be bought, then cops are great. They're only bad when they're used as tools of the state. Ugh, clearly you're the side most deserving of hate. Are you fucking kidding me? There's a Nazi in the Northeast. I do not see what you mean. This guy's a treat. Stop whining about tyranny. You'll never achieve anything with anarchy. I only keep you around because you shut their speech down. There should be no platform for government or Nazis. Ah, there the left goes again, threatening my free speech. I just want you to hear my important ideas. I'm not gonna listen to a fucking Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. That's simply untrue, though I will say, not a big fan of the Jews. Globalists. He means globalists. What? No, I don't. Work with me here! You're clearly a Nazi! I'm more of a race realist, white identitarian, who believes in strong government, sure, totalitarian, but I don't want genocide, I just want an ethno-state. What if people don't want to leave? Then we have a genocide and it's great! Ah, this is why I can't associate with you. Agreed. Come near me and it's World War II too. We both know there's a pipeline between you and me, and you seem embarrassed by how much we agree, and all you do is complain, you goddamn hippie. You think everyone can just get along, but the truth is ruthless, you're ruled by the strong. Exactly, which is why we need to stop this wanton destruction of capitalist rot. You send your workers to die in early graves. The working class are your working slaves. Wait, what's wrong with slaves? Slaves are fine. Listen, dude, this is not the time. Why do you think we need a state to do it? Yeah, don't tread on me, man. Ugh, screw it. Why are you like this? Why are you on my team? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you forget? Everything you have is made by capitalists. It's not a state. It's cold hard cash that builds your roads and feeds your cats. Everything you're saying is utter bullshit. It's not a system of oppression just because you're bad at it. It is. You perpetuate a racist system. Capitalism is colonialism. Colonialism is racism. What's wrong with racism? Please shut the fuck up. There you go again, saying I see race. How can you say that shit with a straight face? The only color that I see is green. Greed is the only way to true equality. Capitalism is destroying Mother Earth. You fascists prioritize human life under net worth. There the left goes again, calling everyone fascist. Yeah, it's very hurtful. You're actually fascist. See, this is what happens when you don't have a state. Everyone just degenerates. That's right. Wait, why am I agreeing with you? Your ideologies killed millions. Okay, true, but I didn't mean it. At least the people I kill are people I'm trying to. The only people that you kill is you. Says the person whose hero put a bullet through his brain. Come here, fascist scum, feel some communist pain. Guys, centrist here. All of this extremism is causing me fear. Isn't there something everyone can just find together and agree on? Not with them, they are the first to go. I'm not engaging in discourse with these people. There's no way I'm getting along with them. Come on, there must be something. I mean, think about it. The supporters of all of you guys have anime profile pictures. That's degenerate. But, yes they do. See, isn't that enough to bond the four of you? Ugh, get out of here, you neoliberal scum. Yeah, go preach peace to someone. I bet this cuck watches mainstream news. Ugh, who the fuck watches mainstream news? Wait, you guys hate the centrists too? I thought it was just me that thought that centrists were shit. But I guess we all hate the moderates. You all still get the bullet, though. Can we get the gas chambers prepared for these three? I will bash all of your skulls in. I keep telling you, it's a fabophilia.
It's a big thank you to Frozen Harlequin.
We should not do that? They both make such compelling arguments.
That was a great ending. That was great. Big thank you to Frozen Harlequin for sharing that. Sorry that you had to take off, but I know it's late in the UK. So let's have our fun now. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and take the political compass test. And then we'll read some articles about why it's bullshit. Let's see here. We talked way too much in this. Here it is. Let's have our fun. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Agree. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. Strongly disagree. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Agree. Not a hard, strong agree, but an agree. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Yeah. That was that Northeast guy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I agree. There's an extent that I agree with that. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I don't agree with that. The right wing, though, would probably say that they disagree with it, but we all know they agree. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I actually do agree with that. We haven't gotten a strongly agree yet. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Not more, but pretty divided. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. I think they're both pretty important either way. But I tend to lean more towards everyone having good jobs and good paying jobs. But they don't mention anything about pay here. I'm going to say I disagree. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Hey, there's our first strongly agree. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Fundamentally, yes. But I don't completely buy into that as an overarching aspect of our political organization. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Oh, hoo, hoo, hoo. Strongly agree. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. I agree with that. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I'm between these two. I'm just going to agree. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Yeah, I agree with that. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Strongly disagree. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Strongly disagree. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Strongly agree. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Agree. Although I don't believe the free market is a thing. The freer the market, the freer the people. Strongly disagree. Abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. All authority should be questioned. Yes, I agree. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I disagree. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Strongly disagree. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I go back and forth on this one, honestly. Because there's an extent that I think that like kids at a certain age should be able to choose whether or not they go to school or not. But not having it be a mandatory option takes away some of the universality of it. And universality is much better for keeping things well funded and not cut away at. I didn't say it was perfect. I said it was better. I'm just going to say disagree. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Strongly disagree. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Strongly disagree. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Agree. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Didn't even need to think about it. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. This is the slight capitalism in me. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a race trader. People with serious and inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Whoa. Yikes. But there are people that believe this. That's why they're asking these questions. This is all based on ideology. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Not the most important. There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. I agree. Yeah. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. I disagree. I think that's freedom, guys. That's actual freedom for you libertarians. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. There's an extent that I do that. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Strongly disagree. Science has proven that. What's good for the most successful corporation is always ultimately good for all of us. Go fuck yourself. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. I strongly disagree. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Strongly agree. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. I strongly disagree with that. I had to think about what that meant, and I was like, oh, fascism. Yeah, fuck that. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Disagree. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Strongly disagree. I am not pro death penalty. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. There's an extent that I agree with that. Like I'm very neutral on that because I think that can go either way. So don't hate me too much on that. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Strongly disagree. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. Strongly disagree. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Strongly disagree. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Strongly agree. That's just a fact. That's not even an opinion. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Never accept the status quo. We go through. You'll find these propositions on religion a breeze. Astrology accurately explains many things. No, it doesn't. You cannot be moral without being religious. No, that's not true. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. No, it's not. Some people are naturally unlucky. That can mean a lot of things. So we're just going to say disagree. Just slightly. Because that can mean a lot of things. If you're born into a poor family, you're at a disadvantage. And I would define that as pretty unlucky. And I would also define that as natural. But I wouldn't define it as that's just a broken person who is going to have that cloud over their head at all times. It means they're at a disadvantage. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Strongly disagree. Holy shit. Okay. A look at sex. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly disagree. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Should not be excluded. Strongly agree. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Strongly agree. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. As long as you're not hurting anyone, which is why I'm going to say agree. Just a light one. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Strongly disagree. Let's see where I'm at. Oh, I missed one. How did I miss that? Should not be excluded from... Yeah, okay. There we go. Is that where I expected to be? Not really. I expected to be more down here. That's why they do it like this kind of spectrum. So I do have some authoritarian tendencies, but definitely left wing. They should have asked more about decommodifying certain objects. So already we're starting to see some flaws in this. Let's go over their explanation. In the introduction, we explained the inadequacies of the traditional left-right line. If we recognize that this is essentially an economic line, it's fine as far as it goes. We can show, for example, Stalin, Mao, Zedong, and Pol Pot with their commitment to a naturally controlled economy on the hard left. Socialists like Mahatma Gandhi and Robert Mugabe would occupy a less extreme leftist position. Margaret Thatcher would be well over to the right, but further right still would be someone like that ultimate free marketeer, General Pinochet. That deals with economics, but the social dimension is also important in politics. That's the one that the mere left-right scale doesn't adequately address, so we've added one, ranging in positions from extreme authoritarian to extreme libertarian. Both on economic dimension and a social dimension are important factors for a proper political analysis. By adding the social dimension, you can show that Stalin was an authoritarian leftist, i.e., the state is more important than the individual, and that Gandhi, believing in the supreme value of each individual, is a liberal leftist. See? It's a lot more different than just calling people libs and conservatives. And then there's libertarians who The less said about them, the better. While the former involves state-imposed arbitrary collectivism, and the extreme top left on the extreme bottom left is voluntary collectivism at regional level. How's it going, everyday progressive? Hundreds of such anarchist communist communities existed in Spain during the Civil War period. You can also put Pinochet, who was prepared to sanction mass killing for the sake of the free market, on the far right, as well as in hardcore authoritarian position. On the non-socialist side, you can distinguish someone like Milton Friedman, who is anti-state for fiscal rather than social reasons, from Hitler, who wanted to make the state stronger even if he wiped out half of humanity in the process. Yes, bring democracy to the workplace. That's something that they didn't ask me about, which is interesting. Chart also makes clear that despite popular perceptions, the opposite of fascism is not communism, but anarchism. Interesting. I.e., liberal socialism. That's true. And that the opposite of communism, i.e., an entirely state-planned economy, is neoliberalism, i.e., is extreme deregulated economy. What did we say earlier about neoliberals? But wait, they put Hitler on the right. What? Hi, Serene. Welcome. Like, that's weird. Yes, he's authoritarian, but that can't be right-wing. Except for the fact that he, empowered his corporations and married the state to the corporations rather than taking them over, not seizing the means of production, but allowing the means to be owned and operated for the betterment of the state. They worked hand in hand rather than working for. See the difference? Hitler was socially and economically conservative. Yes. The usual understanding of anarchism as a left-wing ideology does not take into account the neoliberal anarchism championed by the likes of Ayn Rand, Milton Friedman, and America's Libertarian Party, which couples social Darwinian right-wing economics with liberal positions on most social issues. Often, their libertarian impulses stop short of opposition to strong law and order positions and are more economic in substance, i.e. no taxes, so they are not as extremely libertarian as they are extremely right-wing. On the other hand, the classical libertarian collectivism of anarcho-syndicalism, libertarian socialism, belongs in the bottom left-hand corner. In our homepage, we demolished the myth that authoritarianism is necessarily right-wing, which is true. I agree with that. With the examples of Robert Mugabe, Pol Pot, and Stalin. No one's disagreeing that Stalin wasn't left-wing. That would be stupid. But he was authoritarian as fuck. You can be left-wing and fascist, but these days more often, when you start baking in an ideology of race and pitting people against each other in a market, that's what makes it right-wing. This is not rocket science here. Let's see here. Similarly, Hitler, on an economic scale, was not an extreme right-winger. His economics policies were broadly Keynesian and to the left of some of today's labor parties. If you could get Hitler and Stalin to sit down together and avoid economics, the two diehard authoritarians would find plenty of common ground. But notice, this does not say he would be left-wing, just to the left of most labor parties. I did. A word about neocons and neolibs. U.S. neoconservatives, with their commitment to high military spending and the global assertion of national values, tend to be more authoritarian than hard right. By contrast, neoliberals opposed to such moral leadership, and more especially the ensuing demands on the taxpayer, belong to a further right but less authoritarian region. Paradoxically, the free market in neocon parlance also allows for the large-scale subsidy of military-industrial complex, a considerable degree of corporate welfare and protectionism when deemed in the national interest. These are viewed by neolibs as impediments to the unfettered market forces that they champion. Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, neoliberal. There you go. Oh, this is my actual political compass. And here's my personalized political compass certificate showing your own position is available online. Do they explain it? Do they give a definition? A lot of these places usually do. But yeah, so that's where I sit. Love the free market, but not free healthcare. How's that for a meme? True. So let's find out why this is absolutely complete bullshit. This is an article on Splice Today, written by Tom Joyce. The political compass test is garbage. In theory, it's a decent but flawed idea. This is my view on it. With Democrats determined to oust President Donald Trump, I know that's tricking, I'm sorry, but it's true, the American public has been subjected to an unfortunate reality, an early primary season. The first debates were held in June. More came in July, and come September, there will be even more. Few can identify every Democrat who announced a run, nor will most of their names be relevant in 6 months. Yet somehow most of them still end up on the debate stage. Weird that. However, when elections come around, regardless of who's running, there's one awful constant. Online political quizzes. The political compass test is the worst quiz. The popular and often mocked test asks users a handful of questions and then pins their views to a two-dimensional political compass with 4 quadrants. Authoritarian left, authoritarian right, libertarian left, and libertarian right. In theory, it's a decent but flawed idea. The execution, however, is downright atrocious. No, you haven't. The quiz doesn't allow neutrality on a topic or no opinion. You notice how I was kind of wishy-washy on a few of those things. That would have been nice to have. I should not look away when I'm reading something like this. Oh, excuse me. Could do that sometime. There are some crazy ones. After I finish this segment, I would love to do that with you. If you don't mind. I'm trying not to do a long stream today, but I could do that. That'd be good content. This is a problem because not everyone knows enough on a topic to have a hard stance, or they simply just don't care one way or another on an issue. Even former Republican presidential candidate and paleoconservative Pat Buchanan doesn't have a stance on single-payer healthcare. That is interesting. Many of the questions are either loaded or completely irrelevant, while huge political topics are completely ignored. The quiz starts off with the following proposition. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve the humanity rather than the interests of Oh, thank you for the subscription on YouTube. Enjoy those videos. Transnational corporations. Yeah, we got that. We got that question. If one believes globalization makes life better for both sides, they see no conflict and can't answer it. Then abortion, it reads, abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. I don't know many people, even on the pro-life side, who would agree. A majority of Americans support first trimester abortions, but a ban after 3 months, according to Gallup. In other words, there's a difference between someone supporting a rape exception performed at 8 weeks and an elective abortion after 20 weeks. Kind of something that I felt like. Need to ask a little bit more on that. The test also avoids some of the biggest political issues of the day. Immigration, healthcare systems, endless wars, federal government spending / deficits, the Second Amendment, labor unions, states' rights, higher education, etc. True. Instead, it asks if astrology accurately explains things. No. If society is too open about sex, yes. I have some questions for this writer. If abstract art should be considered art, not my thing personally, if the business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist, and so on. And then the ridiculous results. Without any of them actually taking the test, the political compass creators decided that virtually everyone running for president in 2020 is on the hard right in comparison to all Western democracies, they argue. They put the Republicans as far right as possible on the extreme authoritarian side. They put them, including Maryland's moderate governor Larry Logan, who is popular in a liberal state and not even running for president, where someone would put former Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet if they were making a meme. Why do I feel like this is going to boil down to... Oh, no. They're talking about Breitbart in here. I'm thinking this has some problems. I shouldn't have skimmed this. I should have got a better one. I'm sorry. Consider that a waste of time, because I'm not liking how this is going. Yeah. People shouldn't rely on these tests to see where they align politically or determine a vote. For most, there's not much to gain from treating politics as a sporting contest, where they pin themselves down into some label with a rigid set of ideologies and change their views based on what their team's politicians say. It sounds like it does have a conservative lean, but the conclusion is right. Largely, the biggest problem with the test is it's not broad enough. The questions are not broad enough and not focused enough to answer all the questions. For example, I would probably move a little bit closer to the line. If you ask me where I likely sit when you ask me the questions on everything else that I believe, I would probably sit about here, honestly. Because there's an extent that I do believe that people are allowed to deal with their bodies as they please, so long as it doesn't inflict on anybody else's rights. But I also believe in a powerful social state, a more substantial social state. I also believe in regulating corporations heavily and decommodifying a lot of industries. I largely say I believe in decommodifying anything that is deemed a necessity. Food, water, shelter, and, believe it or not, internet. And transportation. I fit in there too. Entertainment is not a necessity. It is a luxury. But I still believe access to it is necessary for a good citizenry, a happy citizenry, socially libertarian and economically progressive, just like me. Yes. So that's why I say I would be closer to the line, closer to the authoritarianism, but still not quite over the line. So yes, it is very, very flawed, because you're literally trying, and I said this earlier, you're literally trying to pigeonhole a single person into one spot. Largely, what you need to be doing is testing groups in this way. Now, the questions need to be focused and expanded at the same time. It's a lot of these questions, and you also need to add neutrality in there. It makes it very, very flawed to not have both of those things. Because there were some things that I read and I was just like, I kind of don't have much of an opinion on this. I don't know which way I would answer on it. And even then, there was a lot of questions that didn't define their dimensions. So yes, the political compass test, largely bullshit when you're looking at singular people. Do you like any sort of social programs to help the financially strapped? If you answered yes, communists, yeah. Apparently. So let's see what else I wanted to move on to. I got some memes. I found some memes. Oh, maybe this Guardian article would be a little bit better. Political compass points to alienation. A look at the online multi-axis analyst of political positioning might explain our cynicism about election circus. It's official. I'm a political extremist. The one relief is that I'm not the kind of extremist to pack my pants with explosives, and I don't earn my position through hatred of others. Indeed, to arrive at my flavor of extremism, I had to skip past Nelson Mandela, leave the Dalai Lama in my dust, and trample over the entire Green Party. I'm talking, of course, about the political compass, the online multi-axis analyst of political positioning that has been a board office worker's online staple for nearly a decade now. For over those years, innumerable quibbles have been raised about the details of the test and its validity as a measurement tool. It is unclear what objective measures or behaviors, if any, the graph corresponds to. It does seem to have a habit of placing people further to the left and more libertarian than they would consider themselves to be. Now, I think that is actually true. General citizenry does believe that. And I think if you were to test the wealthy, you would find that they would be more to the right and more authoritarian than they would initially agree they were. It all comes from power dynamics. The simplicity of the design means that there is little room for nuance. It cannot account for voters who are motivated by an overriding interest in a single issue, and participants can find themselves placed annoyingly close to political figures they despise. But at the very least, the quiz is, an improbably diverting and intriguing slice of harmless fun. To be more generous, it raises a couple of profound insights into modern politics. The first and most obvious is that the dual axis format is vastly more meaningful and useful than the traditional left-right spectrum. To take one illustration here on SIF, threads are often inflamed by bitter squabbles about whether the BNP are a left-wing or a right-wing party. Often one side is arguing from an economic perspective. The BNP do indeed have statist, protectionist economic policies, while their opponents argue that their extreme authoritarianism makes them right-wing, as fascist parties have been traditionally described. A third front to the argument will then open up as someone else claims the authoritarianism is actually a left-wing trait. That's usually shortly before the moderators step in. The political compass holds that a party or individual can be left-wing and authoritarian. Oh, what's wrong, everyday progressive? Right-wing and social libertarian, or vice versa, and places the BNP, like Hitler, Stalin, and Mugabe, in the authoritarian left quadrant. That would seem about right. This dual axis of politics is not an original observation. Its roots lie in the theories of personality of Theodor Adorno and Hans Eysenck. Making sure I had your Discord. Yeah, you were already in there. Because we've talked before. The political compass has done more than anyone in the 50s and 60s, sorry. But the insight has taken a surprisingly long time to permeate public acceptance. The political compass has done more than anyone or anything to publicize the idea, and for that alone, we should be grateful. The other striking feature of the political compass is where it places virtually all influential politicians in every developed democracy it features. With very few exceptions across Europe, North America, and beyond, ruling parties and politicians can be found slap bang in the middle of the authoritarian right sector. True. Oh, that's fine, man. The most recent UK analysis places Conservatives and New Labour quite frighteningly close together. But where do the general public lie? The authors don't reveal, but any casual survey of public opinion, not to mention countless internet forums where people post their compass scores, would suggest that a significant portion, if not an outright majority, find ourselves in the opposite segment to our leaders. How can there be such a disparity between the public and our politicians? Two explanations could be imagined. The first would be that the political compass is wrongly calibrated and that people whom it describes as leaning to the libertarian left actually do no such thing, and they should really have been placed alongside the parties they vote into power. The other, rather more disturbing possibility is that the values of political parties in free market capitalist democracies do not really correspond to the political values of their electorates. So while I'm not convinced that you'll find most of the public in the authoritarian right quadrant, I am pretty sure that it is precisely where you will find the vast majorities of the financiers, the bankers, the magnates, the press barons, the takers and makers of multinational capitalism. Ooh. In this way, Christian, thank you for your follow. In this way, the compass may go a long way to explaining why so many of us feel utterly alienated from mainstream politics and so cynical about the circus currently unfolding around us. Perhaps we don't just feel politically marginalized, we really are. But then I suppose I would say that I would appear to be a loony lefty libertarian. That was a pretty good article. I like the idea of what that's getting at. Essentially, it is showing that there's a lot of disagreement about it. It isn't expansive enough to just designate where one person is. But as this author suggests, there is a huge disconnect between where the general public sits and where our leaders sit. And the reason for that is power. They are going to be more authoritarian right-wing. And no matter what you tell yourself as a right-winger, if you were to actually take the policies that you actually support, you're probably closer to the center than you think. But the leaders that you support and boost up, well, they don't give two shits about that. But you keep supporting them because they keep talking about freedom and supporting the natural way of life, conserving the old ways, which are better because I don't know. I've never been able to get an answer on that. There's a reason we move forward. So, what does this really boil down to? Is the political spectrum useful? I think largely yes. It is not something that you want to live and die as, but it is something that you do want to pay attention to. And you want to have some base knowledge of. Because while it's hard to pinpoint one person's beliefs down, 90% of the time, if you see somebody as left-wing, especially a leader, they're not that left-wing. No matter how much you want to divorce them from your own personal ideas, which decidedly, most of the time, are actually going to be pretty left-wing. And even in stating that, just because you disagree with it does not mean it's left-wing. A lot of times, conservatives, I'm looking at you, you can disagree with something because it's too far to the right of you. For example, George W. Bush invading Iraq, the Patriot Act, the increase in drone warfare under Obama, all of these are right-wing positions, far to the right. And they're authoritarian, so they're up in that northeastern quadrant a little bit more. But they're to the right of you, and more authoritarian than you. But you're the true right-winger. No. You can actually look at these things as very specific. That's why I say it's still important. It is a generalization. It isn't completely accurate for singular people. But if you put actual policy on there, and then group that policy together, you can have a pretty good idea, once you have an understanding of what these terms mean: authoritarianism, libertarianism, left economics, and right-wing economics. You can actually pinpoint where someone actually sits, if done properly. And it's easiest to do with our leaders, because their policies are what they do, what they profess. It's everywhere. No stone is left unturned. We know for a fact that Trump is an authoritarian right-winger closer to fascism. Not quite there, edging there. Think of the things he wants to do. He wants to go after the press. He wants to stop the lying press, which the only things that they lie about him on don't matter. I'm sorry, guys. Hate to tell you this, but the P-tape is not real. The drug tape, however, I believe is totally real. Anyways, moving on from that conspiracy theory. So, what did we learn? Is this based on an opinion? Largely, no. We can see with our own eyes what a political compass looks like. Whether or not the test is accurate in depicting singular people doesn't matter. But we can take these policies again. We can group them together and we can look at where somebody sits. That's why when I talk about Barack Obama, I put him over here. He's right-wing and authoritarian. And George W. Bush, I put over here. Trump, I put over here. Because we learn what these things mean. Because words do have meanings to them. We can use these things to define things to make it easier to know how to share ideas with each other. If you write it off as just an opinion, you are being disingenuous and dishonest to your audience. And you're going to look like a fool the very second they take even a base poli-sci course. But, of course, that's just my opinion, isn't it? All right.